You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street.
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And this is Creep Street. As always, up top. Real quick, find us on Facebook at Creep Street Podcast, Instagram at Creep Street Podcast, Twitter at Creep Street Pod. We're also on TikTok at Creep Street Podcast. Also on our Facebook, within our Facebook page, there's another group called Citizens of the Milky Way. And what it is, it's just a little fan page. If you want, anyone's welcome to join. You just click there, we'll let you in. We like to post, we try to post once a day just about movies we like, articles we think are really cool and creepy, things like that.
Basically, it's just like the elite.
Yes.
Is what I would call it. I would call it like the Illuminati of Creep Street.
But everyone is free to join.
But you're in it.
Also, it has been a smoking hot July.
Jesus, it sure has.
We are going to continue this into August. It's going to be August. We got some heavy hitters coming in August.
I'm very excited for August.
Heavy hitters coming in August.
These are going to be some good ones. You know, you're laying by the pool, maybe, or maybe you're taking a road trip, or maybe you're just freaking working on your laptop, or or maybe you're changing some diapers. Who knows? But you're going to be listening to some creepy stuff while you're doing it, and you're also going to be sweating because it's so hot.
Good goddamn. Do we have an episode for him today?
It's coming in hard.
Maureen, you introduced me to this. I had not heard about this.
Yes.
This is maybe one of the most harrowing stories of survival. This is
it's incredible.
Insane. This is literally insane, and it's all true. Where this comes from, it was an episode of a TV show called I Survived.
Yes.
And Maureen showed me this. It's quite literally like an edge of your seat.
Oh my God.
It's just wild. It's absolutely wild. Maureen, what are we talking about?
So let's just start from the very beginning. Okay. So the heroine of our story, her name is Jennifer Morey.
Yes.
No, she was a young 20-something living in Houston. She was a lawyer. She's, out here killing it, having a great time.
Very successful.
Yeah, she's, young, still starting out, but really on a great track, clearly
Absolutely.
Amazing. So she lived in Houston, but before she moved to Houston, she came in for the weekend to check out different apartment buildings and, all that kind of stuff to see, the different neighborhoods, Something that was super, super important to her was safety and security.
Absolutely.
So she was really thinking about that the whole time. And the apartment that she ended up choosing, partially she chose because it was not too far from downtown, so it was close by to things. It had a high, I think 8-foot fence perimeter around it. And then also this apartment complex had real Pinkerton security guards.
Which is apparently fucking legit.
Very legit. Pinkerton security's been around for since the 1800s at least. It's some old legit stuff.
Right.
So if your apartment, you're if Pinkerton security guards are on duty 24/7, you're like, oh, this is great. So she's like, that's going to be my apartment. So she moves there, time goes by, and one night she didn't really feel like going out, but a friend of hers kind of encouraged her to go out and get some drinks at this place called the Ale House. Oh, and I should also say this is 1995.
1995. That's right, because I remember this wasn't right. It was
this was happening the night of April 15th. 1995.
April 15th, 1995. Okay.
So just let that color your imagination as to, what people are wearing, what music they're listening to.
She probably rolled in. She probably walked in, Stone Temple Pilots is playing in the back. Sure. Clinton's on the TV.
Oh, playing that sax again.
Playing the sax.
Just for fun this time.
She's probably about to watch Jurassic Park for the 5th time.
Right. So she ended up going out for the night, and she had a really, really great time, actually. And she she got a ride home from a friend, and she got back to her apartment at about 1 a.m. And you know what she does? And she even specifies this.
What?
She washes her face and brushes her teeth. She goes up to her second floor apartment. She locks the door and deadbolts it. So she gets in her bed, goes to sleep, and she falls into a very, very deep sleep.
Right.
And then next thing she knows, she just she feels body weight on her. She's not even really fully awake and not really sure exactly what's going on, but she knows I can feel someone on top of me pressing me down. And then she can tell someone's yanking at her underwear and trying to pull it off. And keep in mind, she was in a really, really sound sleep.
Right.
So at first, she's not even sure what's going on.
Might even think she's just having a bizarre dream or something.
Right. And Jennifer said that then she realized, or she could feel his leg hair up against her skin.
Oh, okay.
And that kind of shook her out of her sleep a little bit more.
Right.
Then she could feel a knife held up to her throat.
Good goddamn Jesus.
And it wasn't until then that she realized that this person was trying to rape her. And immediately that kind of switches.
Suddenly she's in survival mode.
Suddenly
that primal instinct of survival just boom, just kicks in.
Exactly. So she starts screaming and she's saying like, please don't hurt me. And she's just screaming over and over again. And later she found out that about 20 people in 15 different units in her apartment complex woke up from her screaming and none of them called the police, which is so sad because, So she was trying to fight up against him, and she said she put up her hand up to his hand to kind of try to push him away from her.
Right.
And she said that when she touched him, she could tell that it just absolutely enraged him, and that their fighting from that point forward was so intense and really life or death. Like, she could tell that he wasn't going to stop fighting until one of them was dead. So then she took a really, really hard hit to her head, and she said it just felt like a hot waterfall was on her face. It was just blood was just
that was how she described it. It was like it was like a burst of hot water.
And she thought, actually, at that moment, she thought that her eye had been cut out. Thankfully it wasn't, but she thought, she was like, okay, I'm bleeding this much because he just cut my eye out.
And he's still on top of her at this point, right?
Yes. I'm sure,
they're fighting.
Struggling.
Right, they're struggling, I'm sure. Right.
But overall,
they are still...
Even though he didn't actually cut her eye out, he did slash her face open.
Yes.
I believe the cut started like right above her left eyebrow and went down over the bridge of her nose and then went into like the inside corner of her right eye. And she just remembers thinking while this was happening, just purely in survival mode, she could feel the blade cutting into her, but she just thought like, I have to get him off of me. I cannot be raped and I cannot be murdered.
Right.
And so she was just like in absolute fight mode, adrenaline times a million, you know.
Right.
But as she was screaming, this man was saying, Jennifer, shut the hell up. And saying her name.
So knew the name.
This guy knew her name. And then
And she had just moved here, right? We're assuming it was relatively new. So it's like, how many people would she know outside of maybe immediate work associates and whatnot?
Right, I don't know.
That would actually know her by name. Yeah.
Right. And once again, she has this intense security. She's
exactly.
Like, how did anyone even get in here? And how does this person know my name?
Exactly.
And it's so sad because then she said she was just rattling names in her head, like, who would do this?
So while she's fighting him off, she's also running through an index of names and faces.
Right. And it's so sad that in that moment she has to think, like, who do I know that is capable of doing this? Sort of thing. It's like so disgusting. And also it's so sad that she's like, have I wronged anyone so that they would do this to me? It's like, no, you didn't do anything to deserve this. This is like absolute. Even if you did know this person,
even as a lawyer, say this was someone you prosecuted, how would they even fucking know where you lived?
Exactly.
And get past that fucking, even if they found that out,
right?
Get past that fucking Pinkerton security
and the dead-bolted door, and the regular lock.
Exactly. I mean, as safe as you could probably fucking be, pretty much.
Exactly. I mean, truly.
Unless you literally had like a fucking squadron of armed militia waiting out. I mean, how else?
Yeah,
how
short
else
of having like your own private security.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is like as safe as you can be.
Exactly.
Or nevertheless, this person knows her name, so she can't figure that out, and that I'm sure it's just adding a whole other level of stress to the matter for her. But even through all of this, she just felt like she was going to get through it. She just felt within her that she was going to be able to either convince him to stop or she would fight him off. You know, she was convinced that she would be able to do something like that. And she was even trying to communicate that to him. Like, you know, he was telling her, you know, like, don't look at me, bitch, like all that kind of stuff. And in her head, she's like, you know, she's a lawyer. She was like, I know I should look at him, try to get as good a look at him as I can.
Exactly.
So I can report him. But she's like, but I also know that if I don't do exactly what he tells me to do, he's going to kill me.
You're already fighting. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So she told him, she was like, I won't look at you. I won't look at you. And she didn't.
Because even the way you described it about how somehow when she grabbed his arm, that suddenly she felt
that like infuriated him.
Clearly this fucker thought, maybe I can do this and let her, like, clearly.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it was clearly like, oh shit.
Right, yeah, I think he didn't think he would have to, like,
he didn't
actually
think he thought maybe he was hoping she would just kind of not resist, and she did.
Right. You're right, and she did. But even though she did put up a fight, the only thing she really could see of him, because of just the lights were off and, you know, the struggle and everything, she said she could only kind of see the outline of his hair. Like, she could just tell that it was short and straight hair.
So he wasn't wearing a mask or...
No.
That's the other thing. I assumed this whole time that this person was wearing something concealing his...
I don't think so. It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
Right, so she could see his hair, but then as he was kind of throwing her around to different rooms, or maybe she could have gotten a better look at him. She purposely didn't look at him because he told her not to.
Right.
And there's a part of her that was like, no, look, get everything you can. But she could read the situation, and she knew that this person
she was probably also thinking, well, maybe if I don't see, maybe there's a chance, you know, he'll leave.
He'll be like, she doesn't know what I look like. I can get away with this. Maybe that's what he would think. But then her throat got slit.
Oh.
Yeah, it was right under her cheekbone, and then it just swooped down to kind of like the middle of her throat to her jugular vein.
Oh.
So he slits her throat, and she said at that point she thought, oh, I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna make it. So even though she thought she was gonna die, she still deeply didn't want to and still had fight left in her. And so she kept fighting, and at this point they weren't in her bedroom anymore. And he told her to get in the bathroom, and he was running back to the bedroom to get the knife to kill her, I guess.
Jesus
to finish
God.
the job. So she gets in the bathroom and slams the door shut, and she sits down on the ground with her back to the door and her feet up on the bathtub, so that wedged her up against the door.
Exactly.
Even though she was pretty weak at that point, just hopefully her body
between the lock on the door and her.
Well, unfortunately, there was not a lock on the bathroom door.
Are you serious? There's not a lock on the bathroom door?
There wasn't a lock on the bathroom door.
Oh my God.
So she was like, I have to use my body. She's like, I'm losing an insane amount of blood, but
so she's losing blood, so her body's weakening. The door doesn't have a goddamn lock.
Nope.
So she's got to use what's left of her frail body to keep this motherfucker from getting in the goddamn door.
Right.
Jesus Christ.
And then all of the sudden, it's just quiet out there in the living room or the rest of the apartment. But then she can start to hear him rustling around and moving some things. And then she said she could actually hear the sound of a zipper zipping up. And then it sounded like he left. And she waited for a little bit, but she knew she couldn't wait very long because she was going to bleed out. She had actually just grabbed a toilet paper roll and just put it up against her throat with strong, constant pressure on it, which is, exactly what you're supposed to do. So that's good.
Good for her.
But, that's not enough. So she was sitting there and she was like, okay, I have to get up. I'm scared, but I can't just sit in here.
Right.
So she finally musters up all of her courage to stand up and to go out into her apartment where he could absolutely just be waiting for her.
Right.
But she decides to take the risk. But she had been sitting with her back up against the door for so long, and she was pushing so hard, she jammed the door shut.
Oh, God, just from the ferocity of trying to keep it shut.
And her hands are just absolutely covered in blood.
Right, and I'm sure she's weak because she's losing blood, so she probably can't grip shit.
But because of her hands are covered in blood, everything is slippery. Like, she can't even get a grip on the doorknob, and it's actually jammed.
Jesus
So
God.
then she's thinking to herself, she's like, oh my God, I just survived that attack and I'm going to die in this bathroom because I'm stuck. And
Good God. And it doesn't even have a lock on the door.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have a lock on the goddamn
doesn't
door.
even, she's like, I survived something so heinous and this is how I'm going to die.
Jesus God.
But finally, just from constant trying, she got out, thank God. And she looks around and he doesn't seem like he's in there anymore.
Right.
She goes to turn on the lights. The power's out.
Jesus Christ.
So then she's, crawling on her hands and knees around her apartment. She finally gets to her phone.
And I'm sure she's trying to keep as quiet as possible in case that motherfucker's there.
He doesn't, exactly.
She doesn't know if he's there or not.
He could be hiding in a different room. She doesn't know. She doesn't see him and she doesn't hear him, but he could be hiding. And she's thinking that the whole time. So she's crawling on her hands and her knees. Remember, it's 1995.
1995.
She goes to her landline. The phone line is dead.
Oh my God.
Thank God she had a cell phone. Not everyone had a cell phone at this time, but thankfully she did. And thankfully it was charged. Shout out to the whole Creep Street community, okay? Have your cell phone charged. And I'm really bad at this. My phone is always dead. But this story hath changed me. And now I will keep my phone charged because you never know when you're going to need that sucker in a major way and when you're absolutely fucked.
Oh my God.
So
1995. Thank God she even had a cell
exactly.
phone.
She easily could have just not had one.
Right.
So she calls 911 and the 911 dispatcher who gets the call is named Richard Everett.
Okay.
And right away, Jennifer just felt like she could really trust him and just kind of felt like he was a friend. He was just very gentle and right away was very reassuring to her that everything was going to be okay, that help was on its way, that he was very calm and encouraged her to be calm. Yeah, was just very helpful and stayed on the phone with her the entire time. So about 15 minutes into the call, there's a banging on Jennifer's front door. And Jennifer says, oh, it's them. It's they say that they're here. They're here to help me. I'm going to let them in.
Right.
And Richard, the dispatcher, said, no, they're not there yet. I can see on my screen where the fire department and the police department are, and they're not there yet. Don't open the door.
Oh my God. So someone's there.
They said they were security. At first, they kind of make it seem like he doesn't, I don't know if at first he didn't say it was security. And so also something that Richard felt was strange was Jennifer was the only person that had made a 911 call about it.
Right.
So if the security guard is knocking on the door, apparently checking in because they fear you've been attacked, but they haven't called the police yet. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah.
So he would know if there was another unit en route to her apartment complex.
Okay.
But the guy that's security, he's saying, no, it's me, your security guard. Brian is his name. And she couldn't see, though. She couldn't really see through the peephole because she said she was like, I can't see. I don't have my contacts in. But she also
Is she
had
in the bathroom?
Now she's in just like...
Oh, so he's outside the main door.
Yes.
Okay, he's outside the main door.
He's outside the main door. And so she's like, says that she can't see who it is because she doesn't have her contacts in. She doesn't even mention and also my face was slashed open and I thought my eye was out.
Right.
Anyway, so she's like really at this point losing a lot of blood.
Right.
She was slashed in her face. She was slashed on her throat. She was also stabbed in her throat.
Oh.
And she was stabbed twice in the arm.
Jesus.
So she's losing a lot of blood. And she's like, I know that I need help right now. And, this guy is here. He's Pinkerton Security. That's the whole reason I live here. He can help me. I should let him in. And Richard Everett was just like, listen, I have a feeling if you don't know who this guy is, do not open the door. She feels so conflicted, but she doesn't. She listens to Richard. She feels like she can really trust Richard. She doesn't open the door.
I mean, and let's look about it. It's not like by not opening the door, she waits a couple more minutes. We're talking about her life.
Right.
If this truly, this could mean her life. Like if this person is there, is truly security and is there to help her, this could be what changed. This could be what allows her to live or die.
Exactly.
So it's real consequences of not opening that door if that person is who they say they are.
Exactly. And that's why she said she was hysterical. She was just absolutely freaking out and didn't know what to do, but she ended up trusting Richard. And Then she could start to hear siren. And so he's like, okay, do you hear that? Those are the sirens. They're getting closer. You're going to make it. They're almost there. And then she was able to hear other voices outside of her door.
Right. I'm assuming the police and
they said,
the proper authorities showing up.
Exactly. So, and it was multiple voices, and she could hear the sirens, so she knew it was them.
Right.
She opened up the door and pretty much like immediately passed out.
I'm sure. I'm assuming it was probably the adrenaline.
Right. That was keeping her going.
Kept her going. Yeah, it might have been that survival instinct that kept her going.
But she did remember hearing, though, like as she was kind of like coming in and out of consciousness and they were taking her to the hospital, she heard that one of the security officers was injured, and that actually made her cry because she felt bad. She felt sad that another person was affected by this person, whoever came to attack her.
So that someone else was hurt because of it. Right.
Because of it. And she, still kind of had this weird thought in her head, like, did I do something to someone to deserve this? And so it's just so sad that she's just trying to think of any reason why this could be happening. There's literally nothing. Yeah, like, no, you did not. There's nothing you could have done. It's so sad. But thankfully, they take her to the hospital, put her in emergency surgery, and she survives. Incredible.
If there's one thing about this story, at least this woman survived and is healthy to this day.
Yes, totally. So the security guard that was injured was Brian Wayne Gibson. And Brian Wayne Gibson claimed that he saw the assailant jump from Jennifer's second story balcony.
Right.
And got into a physical fight with him.
Right. Yeah, he described as he almost jumped on him. They collided and then, had their confrontation.
And then this assailant attacked him and then ran off into the woods. And that was supposed to be why he was all beat up too, and why he knew something was going on in Jennifer's apartment. But the police searched Jennifer's apartment, and they found a couple of things that I think will be interesting.
Okay.
The police found a knife, a glove, a belt, men's underwear, and a Pinkerton security hat.
Well, god damn.
Yep, that's true. So they go back. Brian Wayne Gibson, they're questioning him, and they're like, hey, so we want to check out the footprints back there on the lawn where apparently this altercation took place. So they're like, hey, can we have your boots? And he's like, sure. So he gives them his boots.
Okay.
And he's wearing white socks, just covered in blood.
Oh.
And they're
like, how did blood get down on them socks?
Yeah, and they're like, it's kind of weird. They're like, okay, take off your shirt. Takes his shirt off. He's just covered in scratch marks all over his body. And they were like, hey, take your pants off.
Motherfucker.
And all of his pubic hair was shaved off, and he was not wearing any underwear. So the Pinkerton security guard that was there specifically to protect her was the one that got into her apartment. I'm sure he had a master key or whatever the hell, knew who she was, knew her habits, knew she lived alone. This was clearly, a planned thing. He knew her name, but clearly they didn't know each other well enough where she would be able to recognize his voice. This was a really fucked up guy.
Wow.
But the detectives went to see Jennifer in the hospital after her surgery, and they told her that she was an absolute fighter. They said that there was just like blood splattered on the ceiling, all over the walls. Like they had never seen anything like it. Like Jennifer just really wanted to live. They had never seen anything like that before. And it's kind of a common consensus that if she had opened that door, he would have killed her. This guy, he was convicted.
Probably attempted murder.
As well as evaded burglary, intent to commit sexual assault. He was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison. However, he got out on parole, and he's out, right?
Jesus.
He is out. But you know what? This is something that's really interesting and wonderful. So, of course, this was such an incredible experience for Jennifer as well as Richard. Richard was the 911 dispatcher. They became really close through this experience, as I'm sure you could imagine, and they are still friends to this day. And in fact, when Jennifer got married, Richard came to her wedding.
Wow.
Isn't that so nice?
That is wonderful.
Yeah, and now Jennifer, she is a lawyer, but she also travels and she gives a lot of speeches to people about how these terrible, terrible things can happen in your life, but they don't need to define you. How important it is to be prepared, but also to move on and to live a full life, but also like just to be ready to go through these hard things.
Wow. And Creep Street, thank you. My name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
And this is Creep Street, Citizens of the Milky Way. Good night and goodbye.
Goodbye.